have
My
my
peach.
get away from
The peach.
That peach is mine.
throwing it all the way back to September 2018 when this little show called Ratched released on Netflix with a total of one season. It was up in the air for a while whether or not the series would continue. I did actually keep checking year after year if there was an official announcement for season 2. And guess what? They did just announce this year that there will no longer be a season 2 for this show. Netflix just has this compulsive urge to cancel good shows, like this itch that needs to be scratched. To give a quick little synopsis in case you don't know what this show even is, Ratched is a suspenseful drama series that tells the origin story of asylum nurse Mildred Ratched. In 1947, Mildred arrives in Northern California to seek employment at a leading psychiatric hospital, where new and unsettling experiments have begun on the human mind. Quote by Netflix. And if you are unfamiliar, this is based off of a character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, which was later adapted to a film with Jack Nicholson and Louise Fletcher playing Nurse Ratched in that film. Now, the show was created by a man named Evan Romansky. However, it was developed by none other than Ryan Murphy. To generalize, Ryan Murphy is known for horror shows in particular. For starters, American Horror Story, this TV show, and the new Monster series. As controversial as you can perceive Ryan Murphy to being, I do truly feel like he had struck gold here, and it is really unfortunate that the series didn't continue. This show, I truly believe, is underrated as hell. I truly believe this show was so monumental for the girls and the gays, and we're gonna get into it, we're gonna talk about it, but it did so much right by having such a strong lead female protagonist and obviously casting Sarah Paulson as brilliant as she is as an actress. There was so much to this show that had so much potential that it really could have been shot into the sky. What a waste. There was so much gold here that it drives me insane. That is no longer a thing anymore, and I need to talk about it. If you have the time, if you're able to, it's only 8 episodes long, you really should invest your time in this show. But let's truly get into it. The first highlight I really need to talk about here is the obvious highlight, which is the character of Ratched, along with Sarah Paulson's amazing performance, stellar performance. Oh my god, she killed it. She absolutely killed it. I'm surprised she didn't even get nominated for this, I don't think. I'm not pressed about it. I don't care. Absolutely fabulous job fleshing out this character. I myself am not familiar with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so I'm not 100% sure how accurate they made this character in comparison to what she was for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But for this particular show, for this reimagining, I do truly believe that this is one of the most complex female leads and interesting female leads that I have ever seen put to screen. It is very rare for us to focus on a female-led villain who is supposed to be a villain, but yet has more depth and more to them than just to being a stereotypical villain, and therefore fleshing out this character more so having you understand her and understand her motivations, resulting in having the audience take her side, resulting in having us root for her instead of hating her. When do we ever really see that happen? I can maybe think of a handful of shows. Usually these TV shows are led by a male protagonist who is supposed to be the villain, but not really the villain that we root for, the anti-hero, if you will. We've seen complex women on TV. Is genuinely supposed to be someone who does some shit. Had it not been Sarah Paulson, I think sure, maybe other actresses could have done a great job, but I truly believe Sarah Paulson just ate this role up. She just ate this shit To give you guys more of an insight into the character, we are introduced to her as simply just wanting to work at this mental health institute. We're not sure why at the very beginning until the end of the episode, but she does some shit just to solidify that she gets a position in this mental institute. What does she do, may you ask? She literally has a patient who is currently mentally unstable and unwell commit just so that she can make it look like she's covering it up and helping the doctor who runs the facility and is the boss of the facility, just so she can get a job.
When you have a moment with the governor, tell him you've offered me a position here.
Yes, of course.
That's insane. That is insane. Even before this, she literally poisoned a priest just so that she can get on the cover of the news outlet, because they're currently covering the mental hospital in this big paper news outlet. So just so that they can have a story to show the mental hospital in a good light and have her be front and center of that, she damn made sure that she got her photo taken. She damn made sure that she got her paparazzi moment just so she can solidify her job here. In the first episode, that is what we see of her, that she is willing to go that far to poison a priest, to have someone themselves. And what is her motivation, may you ask? Getting her serial killer brother out of being sentenced to the death penalty and having him committed as insane so that he doesn't have to serve time in jail. That is her whole motivation. But again, to understand her that much more, it's not as simple as that. You do get a tragic backstory into her and her life and what it was prior to all of this and these events, and it is quite sad, and it does have you realize and empathize with the character because she has gone through a lot throughout her life, and you understand why this brother, why this man means so much to her, and why she's willing to risk so much for him. She was abandoned by her parents and left to foster care. This guy, his name is Edmund/Eddie. She's put in a foster home with him, who is not her biological brother, but basically grows up to be her brother because they end up sharing an abusive home together and living through that trauma. Afterwards, when the system takes them away from that home, they ensure that these two stick together and are put in homes together as brother and sister just because trauma. But unfortunately, throughout their childhood, it does not get any easier and actually gets worse. They get put through numerous foster homes and get abused numerous times from every single family. This really had me questioning, was the foster system that shit back then? Because truly, like, could you not find them one suitable home? Let me know if this is true, because personally, I'm not familiar with the foster care system. I don't know if it's like that today. I would hopefully assume no. But for back then, because this is supposed to be taking place in the late 40s. Not one? Not one. You can find them a family like The Blind Side or some shit. Turn them into football players or something. I don't know. Eventually, it gets to a point where as children, they unfortunately, disturbingly, get put into this last home, which is with this rich couple who seem to treat them well at first, but then end up using them for... I'll just make it up. Child pornography. Yeah. Really sick, really twisted. Ew. Disgusting. So this is the final straw with Edmund, and he snaps. One night, he's like, I can't take this anymore. I'm gonna kill our parents. Do what you gotta do. He ends up gouging their eyes out like a little raven, like a little bird. While he's doing so, Mildred Ratched sees and then doesn't know what the hell to do, but he tells her to run. He's like, go run. So then she leaves. She's like, bet, I'm getting the out of here. And then eventually, this is where we lead to today's day, is that she finds out that he has killed numerous priests in this mass murder massacre. And so because of this, he is being put into this specific mental institute to be deemed either insane or sane, which is why she was so determined to get a job here. So determined to deem him insane so that he doesn't go to prison, doesn't get the death penalty, because she feels that she owes him her life. Because with him killing those last two parents, that allowed her to be free and in a way saved her life. So because she sees him as saving her life, she wants to do the same for him. One thing I do have to say about this though is that when they're kids, it literally looks like they're like the same age, but then aging them up. Sarah Paulson is lovely, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to just call her old because she's not old, but the age gap, it be gapping. They're literally 10 years apart in real life. I just feel like with the casting, with the kids in particular, I just feel like it would have made more sense if they notably made her older, like quite older than him, but they literally look like the same age. But yeah, so in terms of motivation, in terms of understanding where she's coming from, I think the show did such a great job in painting that because of this backstory. And it does have you as the audience understand why she's going through so much trouble just to save her brother. You still feel enough empathy for Ratched because of A, Sarah Paulson's amazing acting, and B, the script. Truly, there's so many moments where you can tell she's just calculated, but then she's also thinking twice about what she's gonna have to do. She's cold. She knows that she has to do these things, but yet there's still some humanity in her that just regrets what she's doing to an extent. Even with that first patient that she pushed to the edge, she gives him her own story and starts notably crying as she's telling him her story. So you can tell that even with doing this act and knowing that she has to do this act, she still has her own conflicted emotions about doing these things to certain people. Not every person. We also know this because we also get a flashback to her in the army, serving as a nurse, even though she actually wasn't supposed to be a nurse there. She just felt the need to be there. And she ends up killing many soldiers, but out of mercy. Out of mercy, because they're always writhing in pain. They're saying how they just want it to end, that they would rather die. And so she takes it upon herself to be that person to give that to them. Just very complex, very complex. Along with her being a character that you empathize with and that you can understand. I also just found it so freaking cool how cold she could be. How batshit she could be sometimes. How calculated she was and smart she was. It's just so, again, refreshing seeing such a dynamic female lead like this. You just don't really see it that much on TV anymore.
Letting me into this hospital was the best decision you ever made.
She's cold. She is f***ing cold. She literally lobotomizes the priest just so that he doesn't talk about her brother, just so that he can't testify against her brother. That's insane. She literally has a man boiling in hot water like a lobster, like a fresh little lobster, just so she can gain the doctor's trust to then eventually kill off that same doctor. It's just, it's so twisted. I love it. This bitch. The peach scene, please. Please. That's my peach. Doesn't have your name on it. Nobody writes their name on a peach. I've seen it done. No, you haven't. What are you gonna do about it? What, are you deaf? No. Just thinking about all the things I'm gonna do about it. Bitch. I ate that shit up. Cannot praise the character enough. Cannot praise Sarah Paulson enough for the way she portrayed it, the amount of emotion that she gave this character, how many times she was crying throughout this show. Oh my God. But wait. There's more. Not only do we get this dynamic, powerful ass, emotional ass female lead, but we also get a lesbian female lead. Because that is right, my besties. She is, in fact, a gay character. And I think this show, it really is so beautiful with its messaging in terms of acceptance. And it did a crazy good job of depicting homophobia and how that was back in the day. So brilliantly done, not just through Sarah Paulson and Mildred Ratched as her character, but the way that they showcase this throughout the mental institution by having not just one, but 2 lesbians being committed in the institution for being lesbian. Well, one of them was committed for being lesbian. The other one, they then find out that she is and then do a bunch of shit to her to make her not be lesbian, but then it's like, obviously she's still gonna be lesbian. Obviously you're not gonna burn the gay away. Like, I thought that was super clever of the show to highlight, because as the character of Mildred Ratched is discovering her own sexuality and realizing that she may herself be lesbian, she's never had a lover before. She notably has a very uncomfortable scene with a man where they do stuff. She starts thinking about a woman that she previously was speaking with, and they went on a nice little date together and ate oysters, which was lovely. And the woman herself admitted to having feeling for Ratched. And so this confused Mildred. She was like, oh my God, I'm not like that. What are you talking about? Why would you get that impression? But then later on, she's getting the cheeks clapped by this man. She thinks of the woman. She thinks of the woman and she thinks about kissing her, which then has her starting to realize that she may herself be lesbian. And along this storyline, we also have Gwen, who knows herself, is comfortable in her skin, knowing that she is a lesbian. However, she is unfortunately in this forced marriage with a gay man where they both have a mutual understanding that they're not together, but they're together for the public side. I did also find that interesting how, that probably was potentially a common thing back in the day where you would marry someone as a cover because you wouldn't feel safe being openly gay in the late 40s. All the while, we have this patient who is admitted into the hospital simply just for being lesbian. The doctor tries different procedures to try and make her not lesbian. Man, it's such a weird thing to say. Make her not lesbian, to anti-gay her. I don't know what's that. First procedure being a lobotomy, which was just nasty. If you guys watch the scene, ew. And after he does this procedure on her, she's then shown, munching some coochie on another patient, which then proves that that obviously didn't work. That obviously does not change a person who they're attracted to. So this then prompts the doctor to trying hydrotherapy, which also was just insane to watch. This poor woman. If they didn't bash her brains out already, try and heal her of the game, they literally boil her to a crispy chicken just to try and make her straight. That's what I've been meaning to say. Why did I keep saying just to make her straight? And so this is when both Ratched and her colleague Huck, I love Huck. We're going to get to Huck. We're going to talk more about Huck. They realize how barbaric this is, how wrong this is, and they both see it as unjustifiable just because she's attracted to women. It's very clear there are other patients who clearly need to be there, who have mental illnesses that need attending to and help with, but with this case, both of them agree that this is just wrong. So thankfully, with Mildred's sympathy and Huck's help, they both get both of the lesbians out of there, because the second patient, they also want to do the hydrotherapy on her, as they're like, oh my God, after the lobotomy, now it made her gay. Oh my God, we have to do something. Oh my God. So they get both of them out, which is great. All of this to say and reflect how insane it was back then when it came to homosexuality. And obviously, a lot of people were very homophobic back then and believed it to be, I guess, a mental illness. So I think that was such a great highlight for the show in terms of showcasing, obviously how much we have progressed throughout the years from that, but how obviously we still have more progress to go. And in showcasing the storyline, it also has Mildred in turn realizing herself how she herself is lesbian and is attracted to women, which then allows her to become herself, allows her to become more comfortable in her skin, which is great. And we get this nice little romance between her and Miranda from Sex and the City. Did y'all know that? Cynthia Nixon? Which is really cute. I thought that their romance was adorable. Ends up developing further after these episodes, which is great. She realizes her feelings. They have like this whole romance. It's just such a queen power move on this show to not only have such a strong female lead character but also have her be lesbian. I think is just fantastic, and I think is great for the representation in the show, because also, as we've come to find, there are a lot of shows and movies that just have, you know, the token gay character, don't do anything to really flesh them out, that they're literally just there to be gay. Whereas here, we literally have this main female lead who is a complex character, has so much going on for her, while also being a lesbian. So it's not just her only personality trait. So for me, I thought fantastically done. I thought that is representation done right. Moving on to this next item. I found this so interesting. This aspect of the show, I didn't realize it until finishing it the second time around, but then when rewatching this, I was like, wait, wait, how the men are represented in the show is very interesting. We are introduced to quite a few male characters in this show. Some of them are not the greatest. Some of them are kind of assholes, and some of them are kind of psychotic, while other ones are relatively nice, relatively solid dudes. Yet what comes to them, in my humble opinion, is unjustifiable, yet happens. So we get a handful of deaths throughout the show, right? There are only 2 females die in the show. One of them being a notable basket case that she ends up kind of being a little psychotic herself. She's this female nurse that we're introduced to early on. Her name's Dolly. She ends up having a thing and, you know, petting Eddie's worm. So he ends up falling in love with her because she pet the worm. And they end up running off together. And then she ends up dying because she's about to kill a bunch of cops. But then there's obviously more cops. Anyway, that's one. And then the second one being a rich, vengeful mother who is looking for revenge for her son, and the way her son ended up having no legs and no arms because of this doctor. She blames the main doctor, the head of the institute, Dr. Hanover, for this. And eventually she ends up dying because the son ends up killing her. But besides those 2 female deaths, it is only men who die throughout this show. And I do have mixed feelings about it. I do think overall it's a pretty badass move. Because I think what this show is trying to do, obviously, is be female empowerment, show these strong female leads, not requiring men and not being helpless like most other shows. Most other shows, movies, you name it, it's usually the damsel in distress, right? Like that's usually the trope, is that these females are in distress and need saving, but they end up dying because they're the damsel. But this show turns that in on its head and actually makes the men the damsels in distress and has them being the ones hunted and being killed off. So you could argue that this is kind of an anti-male show. This is kind of a hate men piece, but I wouldn't necessarily say so, because unlike other movies and shows, let's give example, Don't Worry, Darling. I feel like in other shows and movies, they really try to paint out men to being scum and being just the worst and having only that incel personality trait. So then with them being these pieces of shit, these absolute ball sacks, they get what's coming to them. With this show, I do like it because a lot of these men were okay. A lot of these men were actually decent humans, but yet they die. And so I do find that really interesting with this show because I truly haven't really seen that before where the males are in distress, and even when they're a fairly decent person, when they're a good guy, they still end up being offed. They still end up being killed. There's no mercy to these men. So I do have to give the show snaps for it because truly they really could have leaned into these guys deserved it, like these men, they're terrible, they all should have died, but they didn't do that. So I do appreciate how they ended up killing not just kind of shitty men, but having these somewhat complex male characters, having us potentially empathize and like some of these male characters only to have them die. Like, what a bold move. For examples, the first one, as I mentioned before, was this male patient. I believe it was Mr. Salvatore was his name. And he was locked up in there kind of for no reason. Apologies, I can't really remember what he was in there for, but I think it was like a pretty bullshit reason. Basically, one of the nurses, Dolly, she explains to Ratched how no one is ever going to come for him, that there's just no way that he's going to get out of there. So with this information, she pushes him to himself. Already, notably, I thought, okay, that was wild. There was no indication that he was violent. There was no indication that he was harming people. He's not known for being a killer or anything like that. So already that's one male who was not a bad person who dies. Second, the priest. Well, many priests die. One of them ended up being a so, ew. The other ones at the very beginning, like literally the first scene of the show, die that you would imagine are probably nice humans. Along with this, though, there was one priest who ended up escaping the massacre and ended up being in a wheelchair. And so because he starts talking to Ratched, he then admits to her that he could testify and does plan to testify against Eddie, her brother, into saying that he's basically a murderous psychopath and he deserves the death sentence, basically. So because of this, she then lobotomizes him. So he's nothing but peach stew. That's male nice victim number 2. Number 3, we have this guard. He's this nice little guard who just he hasn't done anything wrong at all. Absolute legend right here. He is shown being so sweet and kind. He's just trying to brighten up this patient's day, and during a dance he asks her to dance, and it's all cute and sweet, like it's so adorable, and then he ends up being sliced in front of her. So ouch. Nice male victim number 3. Number 4, this one's interesting because you could try and argue he deserved it, but I truly don't believe he deserved it. I could see people arguing that he did, though, so take it with a grain of salt. In my humble opinion, he did not deserve it. Dr. Hanover. Now, Dr. Hanover, for a little bit of backstory, as I said before, he is being hunted for mutilating this lady's son when she hired him to try and cure him, and ended up having his arms and legs chopped off. And so because of this lady is out for blood. However, we come to find in a backstory that he believes that dosing the son with a little bit of LSD, like a very small dose of LSD, would help somehow with his psyche. However, unfortunately, the son, being the shit he is, ended up drugging the doctor's drink and put in a shit ton of LSD for the doctor to drink. And so he ended up tripping absolute balls, being high as shit while alone with this kid. And the kid, being the psychopath he is, kills his gardener, takes his arms, and says that he believes he needs to reattach these new arms for him to be a better person, or for some weird ass reason. And I forget who, I don't want to look back and watch, but Either the doctor or the guy ends up actually cutting his own arms off. And the doctor tries to stitch the gardener's arms onto him. However, because it's so infected and it's just too much infection, he can't actually do it. He can't perform that. So he ends up getting the out of there somehow. Because the boy is left like that, the infection ends up spreading, and so he has to actually cut off his legs as well in order to stop the infection. So he no longer has arms or legs. So in reality, it truly was the son's fault, right? I don't blame the doctor. He was high as shit. He was drugged. I don't think he's a bad human for this, and he looks pretty regretful for it as well. And then throughout the show, he has his moments, yes. There's this one plot line with this other nurse named Nurse Bucket, and she has a crush on him. And he does not feel the same towards her. He's like, bitch, get away from me. For whatever reason, Ratched forces him to go with Bucket to this dance. And he doesn't want to, but because Ratched basically has him on a string, she makes him go to this dance with her. And in order to try and tolerate it, he gets high as shit and unfortunately ends up saying a bunch of rude-ass things to her. Says how he never actually liked her, how she disgusts him, stay away from him, that kind of thing. And this makes her cry. And it's really, really sad. It's an upsetting moment. Yes, he did say really nasty things to her. Yes, but A, he was high as shit. B, he was forced to go with her to the dance anyways. And C, he does end up apologizing for this later on in the show.
I've treated you poorly, Betsy. You didn't deserve that.
He had like an asshole moment, but I don't know. Did he deserve to die because of that? I don't think so. He's also shown throughout the show to be trying all of these different medical procedures to try and actually help people. And as the audience, that is truly his main goal, is to help someone, because we see throughout the show how determined he is and how he speaks passionately about all of these different types of procedures that could potentially help people. And eventually he does end up helping someone for a time. He uses hypnosis for this patient who has multiple personality disorder. And it works. It actually works for a little bit there. And when it works, he cries. He actually cries. And he makes a note to himself that he actually helped someone today.
I really helped someone.
We also get some backstory too, that he ended up getting divorced from his wife and she ends up taking full custody of his child simply because he was helping, I believe it was Japanese families that they were getting separated from their kids somehow. Because of this, he spent less time with his own family and didn't focus on his own family enough that now the wife is asking for a divorce and takes his kid away. I truly feel so bad for this man and I don't think he deserved to die. Because he ends up dying. And he ends up dying stupidly, may I add. This was the one death that I had my thoughts. I think it was stupid. This patient, which by the way, brilliantly acted. Oh my God. What is her name? Sophie Okonedo. Apologies if I pronounce it wrong. She did absolutely amazing with this role. Oh my God. This performance. This also should have been nominated, truly.
No! Beethoven would you in the face.
She plays this patient with multiple personality disorder. And she opens up to the doctor at one point in explaining how this came to be, because horrifically, she was locked in a closet for who knows how long, and these men were torturing her. And so from being locked in that closet, she ended up, unfortunately, getting multiple personality disorder. So when she explains this, being locked in the closet and having that happen, fast forwarding, eventually the doctor ends up getting fired from the facility, has to kind of go on the run, and is being hunted by the cops. All of Ratched's doing, by the way. But he is determined to help this patient because he has seen it work with her. He saw the hypnosis work with her, and so he's that determined to cure her, so he takes her with him. So they stop at a hotel motel at one point, and while in their room, the cops knock at the door. What does he do? He puts her in the closet. In the closet of all places. I'm like, you could have chosen anything, bro. You could have chosen the bathroom. I'm sure there's a shower with a curtain, you know. You could have chosen her to just be in the tub, maybe even under the bed, but the closet. He chose the closet. I immediately was like, are you stupid? Like, I'm sorry, but as a doctor, knowing her case, knowing full well that that's what triggered her, like, I just thought that was insane. Like, I know it was a rushed moment. I know he was panicked, but just truly, the cops, they don't even end up coming in. They're literally just at the door and then they just leave. And then she ends up coming out with one of her very aggressive personalities being triggered and believing that Dr. Hanover is Hitler and that she needs to kill Hitler. And she does. And she kills him. Oh, it killed me. I hated it. I thought it was so unjustified. I thought it was dumb how he locked her in the closet to begin with. I'm like, please, like, why? You know what's more unjustified? Huck. So there's this male nurse named Huck who apparently fought in the war. That's why half of his face is the way it is. It's disfigured. And horribly, too, they always make fun of his face, and I honestly hated it.
With a face like that, you wouldn't get a job down at the Five and Dime. You'd scare all the women and children away.
They keep poking at it, and I'm like, stop, this poor man, this poor baby. I love him so much. He's so kind. As I mentioned earlier, he helped Ratched in helping the lesbians escape and just notably has just this big, kind heart. He's so pure. I want nothing but the world for this man. However, he ends up f***ing dying as well. He ends up getting shot in the last episode by Charlotte, the multiple personality disorder patient. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Get out of my face! Get out of my face! No. I thought he was fine. I thought he was gonna make it out. I thought he was gonna find himself a nice girl and live a nice life. But no. That one was the most painful to me by far. Of all of these nice male deaths, that was by far the most painful. All of this to say, they had no mercy when it came to the male characters in this show. And again, I have to give the show credit for it. There were a few that were psycho and actually are still alive. Like I said, the son, he ended up murdering his own mom, but I think he ends up being committed into a mental hospital anyway, but still, like, he's still alive. The psycho Eddie, who killed a bunch of people and killed the guard, he killed the nice little guard that I really liked too. He's still out there. Which that I can understand. It's part of the show. It's part of the plot. So I get not killing him right away. But the governor, also still alive, who is quite the piece of shit, may I say so. The one male death, though, that, you know, he was pretty piece of shit. He wasn't like the worst guy ever, but he was kind of a piece of shit. He was trying to kill Hanover to begin with, and makes fun of Ratched, says that she's like the worst like he's ever had in his life. This death I really liked, actually, because it's just gross. I'm a psycho. This scene was probably the craziest scene of the whole series, in my opinion. Like, I thought this was so well done. It was my favorite scene. Because of the hydrotherapy, you know, they made this the whole episode where they're trying to get the patients into hydrotherapy with this boiling ass water, which is just barbaric. This comes into play later with his death, where they actually end up locking him in boiling water. And then when he manages to escape, you see his disgusting ass skin. His disgusting skin looking like hanging ball sacks. It was nasty. Truly well done, though. It was terrifying. And the way this whole sequence was edited, and then to eventually his death. He doesn't actually die from the burns, but he dies from a bullet. But it was so well done. All of this to say is how insane it was, how the males were the helpless ones in this show and how the tables truly turned. The tables truly turned in this show with having the males be helpless. I give it praise. I do give it praise. A lot of them were unjustifiable, but yet that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I think it was a bold choice of this show to do, because truly, I don't really see males being targeted like this on other TV shows or movies. Not often, anyways. Last point of why you should watch this show, though, like truly, apart from all the other points, is the power of womanhood. This show had such a strong female-led cast, and obviously with Sarah Paulson being Mildred Ratched, but Cynthia Nixon did an amazing job. Judy Davis as Bucket, I freaking loved her as Bucket. She was so good. Sharon Stone, Alice Englert as Dolly, just these super dynamic women. You have such a strong female-led cast. Whether it be highlighting the strength of a woman being able to make tough decisions, being cold, being ruthless, being able to do whatever it takes to get shit done, to be smart, to be ahead of the game, to be hardworking, to be sexually liberated and embrace your sexuality. There is just so much positive women representation in the show that I just adore. But the one that I really do want to highlight the most is actually the relationship between Ratched and Bucket. I think this relationship is the most important in the show, apart from her and Gwendolyn's relationship, because they start off as enemies. They start off hating each other. The peach scene, yeah, that's them. That's them.
You're eating my peach.
I don't see your name on it.
And who would do that?
Somebody who really wanted it.
Bucket stole this bitch's peach. And this bitch is like, that's my peach, bitch. What you gonna do about it, bitch? Bucket immediately has her guards up against Ratched because A, she's not supposed to be there, and she knows that she's not supposed to be there, so she's already on to her. And B, because of the attention that Ratched is getting from Hanover. And I think this is where it truly was depicted so wonderfully. As we know, as I mentioned earlier, Bucket has a crush on Hanover. And because of this crush, she then feels very protective over him and very protective over the hospital, because whatever goes on in the hospital is a reflection of him, and she wants to make sure that she pleases him. And so when Ratched comes in and is sus, notably sus, Bucket is immediately on her defenses, but mainly because of her feelings towards Hanover. Essentially, it's for this man. Essentially, she is mad at Ratched because of this man, because she's protective over her man. I think also part of it is because Ratched is starting to get his attention more, taking his attention away from Bucket. This time and time again, he'll appoint Ratched to doing something, or Bucket will hear that he'll be telling Ratched things or going out to dinner with Ratched, and she'll automatically get kind of defensive. So I think also having to deal with Ratched taking his attention away is also part of the reason why she hates her as well. And what I love is where the relationship switches is when the dance episode happens. She's still at odds with Ratched. Even when Ratched tells her she thinks Hanover has a crush on her and that they would make a good couple together, she's still suspicious of Ratched and still doesn't fully trust her, and even gets one of her friends to snoop and looking into seeing what is Ratched's intentions, who really is Ratched. However, during that dance scene, as I said, Hanover then explodes on Bucket and says a lot of nasty things to her, embarrasses her in front of everyone, which then makes Bucket cry and hide away in the kitchen, and Ratched, along with Gwen, go follow her and support her and comfort her. Basically saying, this man ain't shit. This man ain't shit. And Ratched is actually genuinely sympathetic towards her. She's not doing this just as a fake move. She goes back to Hanover and gives him a piece of her mind. She's just like, what the did you do that? You little bitch. But yeah, she actually has Bucket's back in this situation. So when the rose colored glasses come off after this scene, after Bucket realizes how horrible Hanover is to her and how he doesn't have feelings for her and is actually quite rude, she stops liking him and uncovers the truth about Ratched. But now that she no longer has feelings for him, she actually doesn't really do anything with the information that she learns about Ratched. And at first, it actually was pretty jarring to me when I watched it way back when. I do remember not liking this. I was just like, bro, she hated this girl this whole time. Like, she literally had it out for her. Yet all of a sudden now she has a change of heart. She's not going to do anything with this information anymore. She's not going to out her. She's not going to expose her. But on a rewatch, I realized, oh, it was all because of Hanover. It was all because she had a crush on Hanover. And now taking this man away, they can be friends. Which I think is a great message because truly, how many times does a man get in the way of the girls? How many times does this happen in real life, in TV shows where we're fighting over a dude? In Ratched's case, she wasn't even fighting over him like that, but she just was obviously getting close to him for her own purposes and her own motivations, but they were essentially only at odds because of a man. And once that was eliminated, they became friends. I do actually appreciate that in this story and how they were able to put their differences aside and actually become friends after this, after Ratched showed kindness to her when Hanover was being rude. And then when Bucket learns the truth about Ratched, Bucket actually sympathizes with her and is like, you know what? Okay. Girl, what do we do next? And then they both team up and proceed to having Hanover then taken away, then fired, and having a police hunt on him. And Bucket ends up appointed the head of the mental institute. And by the end, the very end of the show, they're still shown being friends, that they're hanging out somewhere nice on vacation together as friends. And it's actually adorable. I love to see it. And there are a few lines in here that does really hammer in the message of female empowerment in this show. One of them being, once Hanover is let go, they don't have any more doctors in the institute. He was the only doctor. And so then later on, Bucket says,
I've hired a woman doctor. Isn't that incredible?
it makes a point in saying a female doctor. And then by the very end of the show, when they're just hanging out, chilling by the pool, Bucket says,
It's so nice to be rid of them.
Who?
Men.
who needs them? Who needs men?
3 strong, independent women.
So I truly believe that this show was made for the intent of the girlies and the gays, and to really showcase strong female lead characters. And I do truly love that relationship build between Ratched and Bucket and how their relationship developed from hating each other to then becoming besties by the end of it because they didn't have a man in the way anymore. That's so on point. Can we please get a round of applause? Love that. I love seeing queens queening out. For last quick notes, also why you should watch the show, even if you're a dude. I feel like you can still enjoy the show. There is still a lot that's not hammered in, you know what I mean? Like in the don't worry, darling sense. Like there's still great men that are showcased in the show, you know? Like, it's not, like, just filled with shitty men and trying to make women look better by having shitty men, you know what I mean? Like, there still are great male characters in the show. I will also say I loved the horror aspect. I think that was super well done. There are some scenes, like I mentioned before, that are just horrific. I can't rewatch one of those. It was just so gross. I think the story progresses at a great pace. Maybe towards the end there, I did take note towards the end. It was starting to feel a little off pace. Like the very last episode, I was like, I feel like it could have ended in the episode before. But I see how we're tying up some loose ends in this last episode. But also, I feel like towards the end, it was a little off pace. But overall, aesthetics too, can I just add? Oh my God, the cinematography and the color palette for the mental institute and also their outfits and clothing, it was gorgeous. It's like candy. It's just so delicious to look at. The score and editing is also pretty cool. The score in itself reminded me of like an old time movie, like an old time horror movie. So that was pretty fun. And then some of the edits are kind of like old school edits too. So I really liked that as well. Overall, amazing show. I do highly recommend. I think, yeah, if you're a dude, you can still find enjoyment in this. It's just a shame, yeah, for the end that we don't get a season 2. By the end of it, it looked like it was setting up Ratched versus her brother as just this one. If you could look at it as a limited series and this one season, I think you would still find a lot of enjoyment from just this one season. And I think it actually did tell the story really well as just one season. Would it have been nice to have seen season 2? Yes, but I think you can truly enjoy it as it is. Let me know if you guys have seen this show. Let me know all of your thoughts, if you think it's underrated, if you think there was anything else to highlight, any points that I missed. You didn't really like the show. Maybe I'm just speaking out of my ass. Maybe you really didn't like this. If you didn't like it, why didn't you like it? Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time.